Niki and I met back in New York City many years ago, and he was there studying and practicing fine art, and that is his profession now. Niki just has such an incredible mind and heart that I just feel honored to get to have known him over many years and to have had many deep and beautiful conversations, spirituality, philosophy. I mean, and he knows way more about all this stuff than I do. And he'll talk about things like sacred geometry and just, I mean, it's every time I am hanging out with Niki, I'm like, just keep talking, just tell me more. I just want to keep listening to all this goodness. I won't read his biography or anything. We shared that. I just wanted to kind of give that personal introduction and just say I'm grateful for you, brother. I'm really grateful that you agreed to come on and share with us a bit of your story and some of your experience, insights, wisdom you've gained along the way. And thank you once again for facilitating for us at the Zion retreat and at a previous retreat in Midway as well, and leading us in a beautiful Tai Chi practice that was, I know, a highlight and just profound for so many of us. So without further ado, and with all that, I'll just say thank you, brother, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. I see 9 brothers on my screen because it doesn't show everybody, and including Jason, Kamal, Mike, like Tony. Every one of you are such good-looking people. It's almost like you have to be good-looking to be part of this brotherhood. I love this. I love this. I just smile so big to see this goodness from you guys. Oh my goodness. And I love, our retreat was so awesome. I connected so deeply, and thank you for what you brought and letting me share just a tiny little bit. Now, I probably would just excuse myself by telling you that I am virtually blind. And I mean that by virtual space blind, because Asperger's people, which I am, a little bit autistic spectrum, we struggle a lot in virtual space because, just by nature of social cues, it's very hard to read. And if you're not having a spirit-to-spirit connection, it's hard for me to read this space. And that's kind of one of the reasons I've always avoided virtual space. It's been a hard place for me. Like even phone calls alone is really challenging. But I'm really grateful that I'm in a company of good men who I've met, who know me, and I hope that the spirit of what I'm really trying to say, an arc between all of us here. So I am Niki Covington. I'm kind of known so far in this brotherhood as this Tai Chi inner child person. I'm a born again heart person. I like to call myself born again heart person. That makes sense to me. And I like to talk to you about how I became a born again heart person a little bit. And I'm hoping that I can bring some meaningful ideas to the table that will help all of us connect, heal, and feel empowered. So let's see. I feel so deeply connected to myself, like I've never have. And for those of you who've met me, I really cherish that about who I am. But I've not always been that way. And Kamal has known me when I was a little more disconnected, And I kind of want to go into that a little bit because I think we men struggle a lot with disconnection. So most of my life, I've been very disconnected with who I truly am. I was raised in Japan, and Japan has a very strong conformity mindset. I don't know if any of you brothers are from places like that. You don't get the kind of unity you get without the byproducts sometimes. of conformity. There's a very strong pressure in society where you think about the larger whole before you, you know. So unfortunately, that's a true virtue, but it brings a vice. The vice is that the individuality gets very suppressed unless it's checked carefully. And combine that kind of a society and parents especially, combine that with an Asperger's kind of autistic background, which, you know, back then was not known, especially in places like Japan. You get a lot of what I would call kind of suppressed person within me. So my parents were very self-conscious of me because I wasn't able to really be socially acceptable as a child, right? As a child, you're being who you are, but I just remember often being shamed for being who I am and controlled and suppressed to be who I am. So there was a lot of shame and control and the feeling that I'm not allowed. That was kind of the constant message that I received growing up. I'm not allowed. You're not allowed. You are not allowed. Your desires are not allowed. Now, if you know about the nature of emotional frequencies and kind of positive to negative, you know, happy people have very high frequencies. Love is a very high frequency emotion. Gratitude is a very high one too. Shame, on the opposite hand, is actually at the lowest frequency of emotions. It's the most negative emotion we human beings associate at all, you know. So shame is a really big breakthrough that we men need to get to basically confront if we are ever to have a really happy, fulfilling life. Yeah. So I've lived in such a, therefore, a low frequency all my life because shame has been a big dominant language and programming in my brain. So what do we, you know, and for, I don't know if any of you have any autistic children or any friends that are autistic or on the Asperger's spectrum. And the spectrum is a very wide spectrum, but in the Asperger's kind of spectrum, you know, what happens is the autistic person usually start compensating for their inabilities and kind of this disallowance with their head, because they feel emotionally inferior. They can't read social cues. They can't read emotions. They feel really lost, and they're constantly being told the message that you're not allowed, you don't know how to behave, and such and such. So I started compensating very heavily with my brain. My mind became very, very hyperactive, and I became, out of survival, a head person, where I basically maneuvered my way through the difficulties of all the emotions and struggles to relying on thinking, right? Analytical thinking. Okay, this person is obviously expressing love to me. What do I do? Oh, the appropriate thing to do in social cues would be to shake their hand or embrace them or smile at them. Okay, I'll do that. But it was never really from my heart, you see. It was all from the head. But that's kind of the overcompensation programming that a lot of autistic people go through, and it's a real struggle in this world. It's a struggle. We often feel disconnected from society, and never in the in circle, always on the out circle. Now, this head person came at a very high cost. Yeah, it came at the expense of real connection with human beings, with other people. And as I began to have a family, I got married and had children. I began to realize that it came at a heavy cost to my children, my connection with my children, with my wife. And it was all because I kind of abandoned my heart center, you know, my heart center, right? Now, this eventually worked a huge havoc in my marriage because and it all kind of came down, and Mike was actually not in the middle of it, but he was on the periphery of me going through this kind of breakdown. Tiffany, we had moved to Utah, into Manti to take care of Tiffany's mother, who had dementia, and she was basically, in her last chapter of her life, the last few years, she was dying, and we were going to watch her die, take care of her until she passed away. When she passed away, Tiffany was in a very deep emotional need place, because her and her mother had a very, very deep connection. And her mother especially had a really strong dependency connection on her daughter, Tiffany, and because of her past and the traumas that she had experienced. So, but because of my disconnectedness to my heart, I was somehow numb to the feelings that I needed to feel in order to sympathize with someone who was suffering, who was in need. I was numb to it. I couldn't really feel. And I was using my brain to overcompensate and say, okay, she's sad, she's sorrowing, she's in great grief, I need to be there. But I wasn't feeling it. And part of it was because the programming that I had, which said that anytime an emotionally charged experience confronted me, I would immediately shut down because it triggered shame again. And whenever the trigger of shame came, I would shut down quickly. So even though I tried to feel emotions of grief and sorrow and sadness and sympathy and the deeper feelings of empathy, it just wouldn't come, because the first feeling that would come was shame. Shame that, Niki, you are crippled. You are emotionally unable and unavailable to the people who need it the most. And you've always been this way, and you always will be, and you'll never be good enough. You'll never really be there for the person who needs you the most. That's your fate. It is a really crippling place. So she had great needs. She was in grief, and she couldn't help it but kind of project, this feeling onto me as well. Like, how come you're not there for me when I need you the most? Well, it was a really, really, really dark time. She was in grief. I was in grief. The kids knew it. We were on grieving. We weren't talking. And she finally asked, maybe we need to separate. Maybe we need to separate. We can't do this anymore. I can't be with you. You're just not there for me. Right. And I was realizing what is wrong with me. I'm so broken. Right. Now, so I was at this crisis, a really deep crisis. And, the nature of crisis is that things either have to get, it's a medical term, right? Things either have to get better or worse. That's what a crisis means. And it looked like it was really going bad. And, well, make that kind of turmoil short, I was invited by Mike to go to one of his retreats. And it really changed my life. And here's what happened. It was the first time I was among friends and people who were there to listen without judgment, and it was the first time my emotions was on the surface like it's never been before. It was like I've always had this war where my mind was suppressing every emotion, not allowing it to surface all my life. And my emotions were pushing up from below. And finally, it was like exploding in this place of safety where I felt like I was, for the first time in my life, allowed. You are allowed, Niki. You are allowed to speak your truth. And it all just came pouring out, this grief. I wept and I grieved and I sorrowed. I expressed my pain for the first time. That was so deep. And it was so long. I carried this for so many, many years. The trauma as a child of not feeling allowed, not feeling loved, not feeling like I'm special, or, something that I'm just, I've always really just felt like I wasn't a person to be loved, but rather something to be managed, right? Something to be managed, something to be controlled, not someone to be invested in. So, it was a beautiful experience, where finally, for the first time, I was very, very open. And then the breathwork session followed after that. And of course, I had, like many of you, had no idea what that was about. And it was a powerful experience, and a real miracle happened for me there. A breakthrough that I've never experienced before. And as I moved deeper and deeper through the breathwork session, among others, I found myself, among other experiences, one of the experiences I found during breathwork is I found myself in a room with a child who I knew very, very deeply. And some of you are not, nodding your head. You know that. You know this place. I'm so glad you know this place, that I share that with you. And this boy was his hands folded over his knees and his head down. He was weeping. He was just crying. And I immediately knew who this child was, right? Who was it? It was me. Right? It was me. As a child long ago. And I knew why he was weeping, why he was hurting. He had been hurting for many, many years. He had been abandoned many, many years. I've left him neglected. And I've not allowed him to come out because, remember, I was not allowed. So where was this child supposed to go? But in the deepest, darkest cell, buried, right? So all I could do was reach out to him and put my arms around him. And we wept together. We just wept, this little child and me. We wept together for a long time. And then it was then when some amazing things happened, where I think it was, to me, it felt like it was an angel or God, but it was really hands of Mike. He put his heart on my chest as all this was going through. And then it basically was the cue that said, just release it all, let it all out, all of it, empty it completely until there's nothing left. And this heaving of emotions that's been stored for so many, many, many years just came pouring out of me, and I wept 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 until it was just completely empty. All my sorrows and my grief was just gone. It was drained away. The dam basically broke, and it emptied the lake completely. And then I promised this child who I had met, this precious child, that I will do better. I will give you better than what you've been given. I will offer you something better than what you've been offered. And I promise I'll take care of you. Now, from that day, I've tried to keep that promise to that precious child that I met. I loved him because he was nothing but lovable. He was nothing but lovable. All the children within us, our inner child is just so lovable, It's not some special gift I got. It was a new insight that we are truly lovable human beings. And if we fail to love, it's because we can't see that child within all of us, right? And I try to do the inner work necessary to continue to connect with them every day, just like I promised him. Every day I try to connect with him, connect with my center, right? A part of me that's always been there. That's who I really am. That child represents me. Now, I learned a lot from that experience, obviously, many things. One of the things I wanted to mention is the head and heart connection, right? I think many of us in the world, we see a lot of people living out of their heads, just like me, just like I did for so long. I see it everywhere now, actually. We're so disconnected from here. And the irony with our heads and our hearts is that when the disconnect happens, it's like when the heart stops pumping blood into your head, what happens? It's called a stroke. We usually die from it. It's called a stroke. It's a horrible thing that happens. So that connection to the head and the heart is so critical. We really can't live out of our heads. And we begin to die and wither away slowly and slowly and start to shut down. So we need that lifeblood that comes from the heart. I think people that live out of their heads are, strictly out of their heads are really hurting. The world is really wounded. It's not evil. I don't think it's evil. It's just wounded. And because when we're wounded, we wound other people. When we're hurt, we hurt other people. The evil that we see in the world is just hurt manifesting itself everywhere, right? So much of, the Holy Writ was talk about 3 evils of the last days. Men's hearts shall fail them. Men's love shall wax cold. And the last one is, it shall be past feeling. Our feeling center is right here in our hearts, yeah? Yeah. So these are all like heart issues. These are all disconnection from the heart issues. They all stem from this place, this connection here. All 3 of those, the plagues of our time is this. And the real solution is really, I believe, a reconnection with our heart. Another lesson that I learned was about what real manhood is, And we talked about this at the retreat, where we have a tree ring right here, right? That smallest tree ring in the center is your little sapling. It's that inner child that I found deep inside, right? And the very strong trees, they grow concentric, meaning sharing the same center, right? From that tree ring. It expands concentrically. But there are trees that grow eccentrically. Remember this conversation we had, guys? Eccentric trees are not strong. They're weak. They're hurting, right? They're brittle. And it's so critical that we embrace, like circles do, we embrace who we truly are. And we know who we truly are. That we love it. We wrap our arms around it. And we grow with it as the center. That's and I think manhood is really that, is a concentric growth from that childhood. Anything else is not real manhood. Anything else is real disconnection. It's real abandonment is what it is. And men do not abandon the vulnerable. We do not abandon vulnerability. We protect it. We cherish it. We love it. Right? That's what we are. Another thing I learned is that the desire of our hearts is always righteous. Meaning we can't go wrong in our desires when we are connected with our hearts. Right? We can't go wrong. Whatever you desire that is really connected from this deep place, I think, will come to pass. But oftentimes we're afraid to ask for things because we don't know if it's really a place, it's a thing that comes, that really is a manifestation of our true self. But when we're really deeply connected with who we are, with our deepest selves, I feel like whatsoever we ask, it shall be given to us. Because we are true, like an arrow, right? An arrow flies true. And when we are centered in our truth, the world can't help but stop moving. You know, destiny can't help but move for us. Heavens will move for our sake, right? But it's that connection we have to have. We've got to be there. We've got to be centered. But when we are, miracles happen. Miracles happen, I think, whatsoever we ask. The opposite is when we begin to identify with our external selves, right? Or what we call the aspectual self, or anything of our jobs, of our looks, of our body, of our charisma, of our titles, of our callings, of our, I mean, you name it, of our money, right? Of our popularity in society, whatever virtue even that you might have. Anytime we identify with these things, we're identifying not with our center, but with our aspectual self. And that is what I call ego, right? Ego. Ego is the identification with the aspectual self, not with a central self. And anytime we make wishes upon our egos, then we wonder why it always turns into a self-betrayal at the end. Things, it may come to pass, but it always ends up hurting us. We can't figure it out, right? The irony with this is, if you remember Carl Jung's comment, how the ego only knows of its own content. It's completely unaware of the subconscious or the unconscious. It's utterly unaware. The ego knows only of itself, right? So the ego is completely unaware of who we are deep inside. Who we are, like, it's, this is such an irony. We have this true self inside that the ego can never know. It's completely inaccessible to the ego self, right? Until we actually connect with the inner self, make a connection. That's me. That was my life. I was living out of ego. Always ego, 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 and always frustrated, afraid, worried, anxiety, self-conscious. All these ideas are egocentric, right? But when we begin to connect with, when I began to connect with my inner self, then the fear went away, the worries went away, the anxieties went away. I began to truly, deeply believe in myself. I began to pray with such faith, and I knew it would come to pass because I was talking and praying from a really deeper self. And Spinoza, one of the great philosophers, speak about this idea of the through line. The through line is this idea that in the center of us, who we really are isn't any of this, but it's the deepest center of us. It's the point in the middle. But in the middle, right, through the middle, you can draw a line that connects every other centers, right? It's a center to center connection. In fact, all true and real connection with ourselves or with other people, with our spouses, has to be a center to center connection, right? Otherwise, it's an aspectual connection, aspectual to aspectual connection. That's ego to ego. Ego and egos can never connect. It knows not know how to unify itself with anything else. So all true connection comes from the center. It's a center to center connection. You fell in love with your wife, or you love your children, not because of their aspectual good looks or aspectual charisma or capacity or earning capacity, or not any of that. I think you really fell in love with your spouse because you had a glimpse of the center of who she really is. And you fell in love with that. And there was a connection made. And there was a through line drawn between your center and her center. And whenever we start to have struggles in marriage, it's often because we have been separated from our centers and we have been separated from their centers. We're no longer drawing a through line between the two. I think this is a beautiful experience when you have those moments with your spouse, when you're really connecting through the center of each other. And I'll just put a plug in for some of the couples retreats we do. Sex, real sex, is about piercing to the center, isn't it? The symbolism of sex is piercing to the center. It's a really profound, profound symbol that happens that we share with our spouses. It's an outward expression of that inner piercing and inner through line that connects us both to our very centers. Now, I have begun to learn that, well, the connection with ourselves is, for me, was the first step, was just really the first step. And, I love C.S. Lewis in his last book. They enter that, remember, everyone enters that room and then they basically die or whatever. But then they discover that the internal room, which really represents with our souls, is much bigger than the external world, And I thought that when I pierced my center and I had this beautiful connection with myself, and I felt like, wow, I experienced this amazing journey and this healing. And then I realized it was just the beginning of my healing and my journey and my expansion. Because when you pierce that center, the expansion, that ring just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And our capacities grow bigger and bigger and bigger. I think the next step really is this idea of once we are connected and once we begin to heal, then we begin to experience empowerment, and then creation, this new creation and new empowerment. And I want to put a plug in also for Mitch Whiting. He did such a wonderful job at the retreat, and he talked about being able to identify the false beliefs or the lies that we adopted in our lives that is hurting us, that is limiting our capacity and our potential. It was a powerful talk. And this idea, that was really powerful for me. And thank you, Mitch, for doing that. So much of that experience is magnified when we first begin to connect, because it's really about identifying the false beliefs, in my case, the false beliefs that I adopted as a true belief when I was a little child. Yeah. As a child, I decided I am not allowed. I decided that. And I stopped talking. My heart stopped talking. I stopped expressing emotion, right? So, but when we connect with our inner child, then that work really gets facilitated very quickly, because you can go back to that place. And I go back to, through meditation, to that place with connection with myself. And I go back to my past and I seek to identify, like I talk to that little child and say, what else did you feel? What else did you believe that hurt you now? What else were you so afraid of? And then I was just identifying so many lies and then learning to cast them off with a big smile, and I felt that empowerment. And Mitch, you really began that effort for me. So thank you so much. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I just open up to questions or whatever is my work with Tai Chi. Tai Chi is really just a vehicle. Yeah, is a vehicle to facilitate this inner work. For me, that's what it's been. And some people use yoga, and some people use, running or workouts or whatever works for you. I hope you have a vehicle that helps you. For me, Tai Chi has been the vehicle for that, for this inner work with the connecting with the inner child. In the Taoist thought, I began to take very seriously, for me being a Christian, I began to take very seriously Christ's teachings about becometh as a child, for such is the kingdom. And I I began to take that to my heart. And in Taoist thought, the idea of the inner child is surprisingly very deeply developed. And it's really amazing. It's very interesting ideas. And I love to talk to you about that. I won't talk too much about it right now, but the idea of generating the inner child, isn't that interesting how you have these riddles that Christ gave, which is resurfaces in other cultures and other enlightened teachings, and you begin to have new perspective about even as a Christian, and I've really appreciated that about my own beliefs and how to go about generating this inner child and connecting deeply with it. But one of the things that we talked about is in Tai Chi is how it's an inner martial art, right? It's a moving meditation, and how the greatest wars are really waged in the secret chambers of our hearts, and the battles won and lost here get manifested into the external world, right? Into our families, into our marriages, into our nations. And so much of the battle we see, and even the success we see, is really a manifestation of how connected we really are, how individuals are connected with themselves, right? So this is a way for me to connect with my inner child, and it's easy movements, helps me to release the evil that I feel, or the aggression that I feel, or the anxiety that I feel, and to do the inner work, it's just really centering. That's what it's about. And finding ways to disconnect from my ego. That's a really big aspect of me. I really try hard to disconnect with my ego and connect with my inner child. Now, just a couple of thoughts with what are some advantages to this centering in an external way. Well, when we function from our true self, we function from our true desires, and we're really pursuing a path that we are really called to go, right? We're true to ourselves. We find ourselves in line. In Chinese, they call it the Wu Wei. Wu Wei is it's in opposition to my way. Wu Wei. Wu Wei is really about being in alignment with what God has in store for you. And you find yourself just finding yourself in the flow of His current, and your life is taking you there. And without you even trying, without you even coercing, without compulsory means, it shall flow unto thee forever and ever. That's a great analogy, right? So you find yourself in that space, moving with the current that you should be moving with, in the direction you should be moving with the people you should be moving with. And it's bringing you fulfillment and joy. You also are functioning from a very high frequency of positivity, right? Because you're connected and you're identifying with your true self. And that frequency we talked about, where shame is at the bottom, you're functioning from positivity with connectedness, with joy, and with peace, inner peace, right? And all these things are very high frequency emotions. And guess what? People love to be with high frequency people, right? Because it makes you feel good, because that's what you want. And that's why we want to be with Mike and John and Tony and Jason and even Kamau, and we want to be with these amazing people, because you guys emit such high frequencies, and we need that in our lives to realize our full capacity, right? And we also have authenticity. We're confident, we're loving, we're integral, right? Because integral is what? Integral to who you really are inside. How can you be integral to who you are inside unless you're really connected with it, right? You're genuine. Your faith in yourself grows. And good and beautiful things begin to manifest in your life. right? And we're able to dig deeper into ourselves and continue to weed out the evil and the false ideas and incorporate stronger and more powerful beliefs about ourselves that empower us and strengthen us. And anyway, these are parts, so many ways that I feel like even in my small journey has manifested in my life. Just by the simple effort of connecting with my inner child. The byproducts and the waves has been tremendous. Just as the cost of disconnection has been tremendous. That's all I wanted to say. Mike, we can turn it over to quick Q&A, or if you have any thoughts or comments or...
Yeah, thank you so much, Niki, for sharing that story, your journey with us and what you've learned along the way. I would be interested to hear if you'd be willing to share a little bit about what it looked like to reconnect with Tiffany, because you talked about your journey with her and where that relationship was going, and then some breakthroughs that you had, and then what was it like to reunite and reconnect, as much as you're open to or willing to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for my wife. She is so, I remember going to her after that retreat, and because I was so connected to myself, the amazing thing about finding your inner child and knowing who you really are and having that miracle is you immediately begin to see it in everybody else. Like you see it, and I saw it in her the moment I saw her. And I saw that the person I've been wrestling with is not the person that it was a different person now, I saw her for who she really is. And I immediately felt this connection. And we human beings have an amazing sense, because our real greatest sense is not of our empirical five senses, but our spirit, because spirit is an instrument of measure. It can sense things, right? So immediately her spirit sensed the frequency of my spirit, for lack of a better explanation. And she immediately said something like, she basically smiled, and her smile said, "You have changed. Something amazing has happened to you." And my smile in return, with tears in my eyes, was, I have changed. Something incredible happened to me. And I remember just embracing her. And I immediately felt this forgiveness, that without any words exchanged, this forgiveness and this connection that occurred. And of course, we talked thereafter, but it was such a deep connection that I felt with her, and a feeling of forgiveness and love. And I basically said, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I have been hurting for so many years, and I didn't even know that I was hurting. I didn't even know. And because I was hurting you. And I was unable to love you as you really needed to be loved. And we had a beautiful conversation, and we continue to have that conversation. Our relationship has been amazing. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Niki. Powerful. Yeah, if anyone else has a comment or question they'd like to share with Niki, we'd open it up. Just got a few more minutes here.
Can I throw one out there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Niki. Quick comment is just thank you so much. This was beautiful and just really, really resonant for me. I would be interested if you're open to sharing how your relationship with God has evolved through this. If that was a challenge previously in that kind of disconnection. I shared a little bit at the retreat of some of the challenges I've gone through over the last year or two with that. So as you've been able to kind of find that core, I'm just curious how that connection to God has grown or changed.
Yeah, I love that question. In the breathwork session, it was God who led me to my inner child. It was him who led me there. And I felt him leading me there. And I love my God. I don't know how else to say it. Anyway, I weep and I smile at the same time, Greg, because and I've heard other people say this, that there is a level of prayer that I was at, and I thought I had a very strong prayer, but something changed for me, where I felt like since then I have been in constant connection with God. Like my prayers never cease and never stops. I'm always in conversation with him. He just is always there. And really, when I say the through line, what is the through line, guys? What is the really through line for me as a Christian? I am the way. I am the way. That's God. That was my through line. And whenever I'm centered, I'm always touching that through line. I'm always touching the way. And I'm never distant from him. And I'm in constant communication through that through line, And irony with the through line is that I always know when I'm touching the through line, I can get through anything. I can get through anything. And that's a really powerful connection, a new connection that I've developed with God. And I'm so grateful for it.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. I love Keoki. I see you now. You popped up on the screen.
If I comment real quick, is that okay?
Yeah.
This breathwork session on that retreat, you guys, if those of you that are here have not been, you need to go to a Michael Allen Heare Brotherhood retreat. It's what Niki just said. He shared his experience was similar to my own, and I found myself. And I appreciate your words, Niki, because to tell you the truth, having it been my first time, I had no idea what to do with all of this experience. And so having your guidance in finding my concentric self, it makes total sense to me. And yes, I was also guided to find my little me. Can you imagine a 6'4" Hawaiian in a corner? I found him, and I am in love with that connection. And I believe all of us together, we were able to call upon that journey to our center core all in that same moment. And that's what made it even more powerful. So yes, communication with yourself and God on the daily is the connection. But as we congregate, that connection can pulsate through the earth, and we can feel it connectedly in such a stronger body. So anyone that's here that hasn't gone, you need to go. And wherever these guys congregate, there you'll find that connection automatically. So thank you.
Yeah. Can I share something with Niki?
Yes, Jason.
We'll go Jason Jarvis and we'll Mitch after that. Mitch raised his hand, so let's go.
Oh,
Jason.
good. Yeah, I'd way rather go before Mitch than after him for sure. We'll work our way up in spiritual depth, but I just wanted to share, Niki, that when I came home from the retreat, I was within 24 hours had my wife, or my father-in-law, my wife's dad has dementia and Alzheimer's, and we moved away, and within a week he dropped off a cliff with how he was doing. Where like he didn't recognize himself, he didn't know he was married. That happened really quickly. And within 2 hours of my wife kind of having that update, she decided that I'm a really shitty husband who's not doing a good job anymore. You know, and it felt like more than a coincidence that she went through something really painful, and then I felt like she kind of got feisty with me, and I'm so in my brain that even though I just wanted to have my heart break with hers, I felt so defensive and so hurt, and so if she would be nice to me, I would be nice to her, and all this stuff. And it's not working for her, and it's not working for me, and it's been a really painful few days. And then I jump on this call and you share a story about your mother-in-law having dementia and your wife being really pained by it, and then it leading to a really difficult time in your marriage, a crisis where it'll either get better or worse. And that's just like really beautiful. I can only imagine that your connection to the through line helped bring that story to your heart and your mind, and helped bring me to the call. And I'm like still like the spiritual pre-picture and the before and after, when people are fat and then they get a train and they get skinny. It's like you're like the super jacked guy and I'm still like the fat mess. Like I'm not there yet, but like, well, how beautiful for you to share that. And I just appreciate you and love you. I just want to affirm that you're like living your life through that through line in a way that's really a blessing for me. I love you, buddy.
Thank you, Jason. I love you too. Man, I hope you get pierced to the center and you can pierce her to the center.
Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna try. And y'all are helping me get there, and then I'm paying Mitch to help me get there too. So he's up next. We'll let him talk, and I'll keep I'll keep working.
Mitch, are you ready?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to say. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Incredible how that
Thank you so much.
lined up. Man. Okay. Any last question or comment? Now's your chance. Otherwise, I think we all just want to say thank you to Niki for showing us through his story and vulnerability how to do the work. Just beautiful. Thank you so much, brother. We love you. And Jason, we're with you, brother. You're in the thick of it right now. If you need anything, we're here for you, and we're cheering for you, and we're rooting for you. I know it's all gonna go according to God's plan. And his plan is always better than ours. He knows more what's going on than we do. But thank you guys. Love you all. Appreciate it.
Love you.
Thank
Love
you,
you.
Love you
Niki.
guys.
Love you, Nikki.
Guys.
Love you, Mike. Thank you, guys.